This is Melissa, and you are about to be seeing a real history that I am having with Sierra. I'm looking forward to sharing this chat with you. And the same thing that happened when I was talking with Nick about the novel We, that occurred on this recording as well, which is with that one, all you saw was Nick, and with this one, all you'll see is Sierra. So Nick had Zoom. He had invited me to his Zoom call, but I'm the one who recorded it. And that was my very first outing doing that. I didn't realize until after it happened again with Sierra that I have to tell it when I record that I want it to view all participants. That was just not a step that I had to do on Skype. Whatever I saw on the screen is what Skype saw and recorded too. But alas, that's not the case with Zoom, and the Skype days are over. That was phased out as a software option a couple of weeks ago. So, there you go. Here comes real history. Thank you. Yes, I would like to. Okay, so it says recording is in progress. I think this is good. Okay.
It gave me the notice too, so I had to confirm it.
Okay, good. Well, fingers crossed that this is the maiden Zoom voyage.
Yes, I'm honored.
I was never so disappointed as to see Skype go away because it was just so easy and straightforward. There was nothing to it, and I tried Teams out, and I'm like, what a disaster this is. So,
Not my favorite either.
uh,
I'm not a huge fan of Teams.
no, I bit the bullet. Somebody said, well, Google Meet is not bad, but I think they limit the time of your conversation. So I'm just like, okay, I'll pay a small monthly fee to talk unlimitedly.
Mhm. Mhm.
All right, so glasses. I took them off for a reason, all that glare. Hello, this is Real History. I am Melissa, and today, when you see this, is the 29th of May, 2025. And I am excited to be joined again by Sierra from Impact Reconciliation. And we spoke in November of last year. She reminded me that it was Election Day. And today, as we record, it is a rainy, stormy day here in Texas, and it is Memorial Day. And Memorial Day started as going out to decorate the graves, the cemeteries of Civil War veterans, those who were lost in the Civil War. And then it kind of morphed into remembering all of the soldiers who had died in service of the U.S. Armed Forces. So that's what we're doing today. And I wanted to just dive in with Sierra, and we're going to talk about things off the bat that aren't right for certain places. And then that way I can just cut it right out and put it, you know, and then everybody else, you'll get the whole scoop of everything that's new with Sierra. So, hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me back, Melissa.
Oh, I'm
Appreciate it.
excited. So, you said that you were hosting 20 family members over the weekend. That's amazing. That's a house full.
It was a wonderful house full, but it's a part of being in the South is having big family get-togethers and making lots of merriment with extended relatives. So yeah, it was really great. We hadn't gotten to see each other in far too long.
Oh, that's good. That's nice. That's very nice. And also, I want to remind listeners that Sierra's husband is a longtime Alan Watt listener, and her brother is as well. So she was telling us all that there were lots of good conversations about, did you hear what Alan said tonight?
Yes.
So I like that. That's very fun.
Oh yeah.
That
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Go
just
ahead.
back up really quickly because if you did not hear the episode that I did with Sierra in the fall, then you don't know that I think I'll get the order right, but she studied and became a doula, and then a midwife, and then a maternity nurse, and spent quite a number of years working as a nurse, and she's also the mother of 4 children. Did I kind of get it in the right order?
It's mostly right.
Okay.
I'm certainly not a state-sponsored midwife by any means. My community has given me that as a title, but it's not a title that I can legally use at all.
Well, I like the
Um,
way that you said it in that episode when you said that you had a calling to
mhm.
be a midwife, and
Yes,
I like that. But you did study to be a doula, and you are a nurse, so
yes, absolutely. And I am in midwifery school. Again, it's not recognized by the state at all. But so many really great things are not necessarily recognized by the state. Um, so yeah, it's grown in a way to advocate for people. We had an amazing legislative year for 2024, 2025, early spring of 25. We actually put together a legislative action group that focused on um, stuff to do with the blood. We start at the plate with food as far as being able to heal the body of anemia. And we talk about what should be on your plate and how we can put certain things together to make iron and B vitamins most available to your body. And then we go into the mouth and the whole digestive system. We travel around with iron and B vitamins in all the places where they can be absorbed, broken down, or things can go awry. And it's a brief introduction to what makes things go awry in people and how can you do some things on your own, tweaking with lifestyle to see, hey, it worked. Now I'm not anemic anymore. I'm building my iron stores naturally. Boom, awesome. Or how to find people who can help you who aren't just going to say, here is a prescription for ferrous sulfate, 325 milligrams, take it twice a day. You know, um, ferrous sulfate is hilarious to me because it is like so bound. It's almost not usable form of iron completely. And it hurts your stomach. Most people won't take it because it hurts their stomach. So, anyway, there's way better irons available. I'll go ahead and tell everybody right now it's iron biglycinate. It's so much better. It's like a fermented form of iron. So it's already been put through a lot of the processing before you take it by mouth. It doesn't hurt your stomach. It doesn't cause diarrhea. And it's way more bioavailable than the cheap synthetic stuff that they prescribe.
and I'm assuming you can't get that at your local pharmacy.
No, you're going to have to spend out some money
Yeah,
for it. It's
yeah.
it's not terribly expensive,
But it's a
but
special order kind of product. Yeah.
yes, ma'am. Yep, that is not the standard that our medical system is on right now. Um, so yeah, I'm extremely excited about this. I'm launching what I'm calling a book club, where we will meet together and go over a section of the book together.
That's
And then
great.
I know it's like I know I'm talking to someone who literally has a book club. Um,
No, that's yeah, I love book club. It's
yeah,
a good
book club.
thing.
It's fun. And so that way it's my chance to clarify anything that we'll interview really interesting people who contribute to the conversation from their vantage point. So, I have an Ayurvedic doctor who's going to talk
Great.
about anemia from their vantage point, and a clinical counselor who is going to talk about anemia from his vantage point. Because, you know, stress, this is incredible. Your body doesn't know the difference between physical stress and emotional stress. It's the same.
Right.
You, it's the same to your body. It doesn't know. And so, um, if you're under stress, then your body produces a hormone called hepcidin, way, way more. Hepcidin inhibits or prevents the body from being able to absorb iron. So it's a
Interesting.
literal direct correlation right there, stress and anemia. And then, a spiritual person will talk to us as well, because there's so much scripture about blood from the Bible about the um, a broken heart dries the bones, or a broken spirit dries the bones, but a cheerful heart is good medicine. These things, these proverbs were given to us over time. Leviticus, the life is in the blood. Yes. So we will have all different vantage points coming together to help people in a language that is going to make sense to them. Because sometimes you hear the same message from one person and it makes sense, or you hear it from another person and you can't really hear what they're saying because they're using a different language, than what you can receive. So I'm really excited about that. That is something, if anybody listening to this wants to jump on, then we have our sign up available on my website right now for it's essentially a wait list because we'll have to all start together. So to be in that first book club cohort. So you just sign up on my newsletter, and then I'll give you all of the instructions on how to be a part of the founders round. And then
Great. Do you have a kind of a time frame of when you think it will launch?
in about a month.
Great. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, you said this is the first installment, Blood and Reconciliation. Do you have an idea yet? Have you projected how many books will be in the series, or how many parts of the big book, or?
Gosh, it's a trilogy at least, because the next one I thought I was going to be writing was about fertility
Hmm.
and this technology of CRISPR technology of gene editing human beings before they're born, when they're in the petri dish, after they're born, anytime.
Did you see? I lose track of time, but it hasn't been that long that there was a big article about the first baby that was, quote, healed using CRISPR technology. I don't now recall the condition, but I think the story came out not long ago, a month, 3 months ago. Like I said, I can't keep track of time in that way, but I just think it's very interesting that naturally it's going to be a baby and it's a problem with a baby. That's how they always, push this. But most of what they've shown that they can do with CRISPR technology is something that could be healed outside of CRISPR technology. It's just interesting.
Right. Even the babies uh in the petri dishes are healed. That's a study, and golly, I wish I had it readily available to just like rattle it off. But there was a study that was recently done where they were really challenging this notion of doing genetic testing on they're really not embryos yet. There's so little blastocysts and so forth, like just a few cells,
Hmm.
big humans, and testing them and then discarding or killing people who had markers for certain genetic anomalies. And what they found when they had people who said, we don't believe that we want to throw those people away, and they just stated, they found that even people who had those markers were born normally.
Hmm.
So there was a healing that took place, which really makes, honestly, it really makes sense. They're literally just a ton of stem cells, not just a ton of stem cells, but they have a ton of stem cells. They are healing machines.
Hmm.
Not literally machines, they're humans. but we but we all are. We are all
Yeah.
literally healing machines. Like our body is designed, the gene, your DNA is designed to heal itself. Your DNA is designed to heal your body. If you remove the things that get into the way, it almost always will do that. So,
This is a total aside, but it was the first time that I had heard this concept was yesterday, and so it's still in my mind as like, oh wow, that is so cool. But I was having a lengthy conversation with someone yesterday who trained as a chemist and then a biochemist and then got into pharmacology, and we were talking about origins of life. And he has long had, the whole idea that you never see in nature evolution of different kinds, one kind evolving into another kind. And so he was just shooting holes into the idea of evolution as it was given to us by Darwin and Dawkins and all of that. But he used a term that just kind of blew me away, or he said something. He said, in the beginning was the word. He said the word is DNA. And I'm like, and there was never a time when there wasn't that, you know. And I thought, wow, that's so cool. I love that. But yeah, that's and it tied right in. Sorry, but my little enthusiasm spill out. I'm reading for next week's Real History. I'm reading a novel with Nick Hayes of Hayes Reviews, and we're reading Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson. And I just reached the point in the novel where he's going into Sumer, which we've been talking about on Alan Watts' Waiting for the Miracle, and ancient civilization and the language and so forth. And he's having this whole discussion there of all of the things that you can observe if you're looking at the cuneiform of Sumer, the tablets, and then naturally, because this is coming, the character is a hacker geek. Neil Stevenson actually reproduces an image and he says, "Now, what do you see?" And it's a Sumerian, and he's holding the most important symbols, and it looks like a staff. It almost looks like a staff that with a closed hook. And he said, "What do you see?" And of course, if you're a hacker, you see ones and zeros. That's what you see. And I thought that it's almost like what is unfolding in this novel is the timeless argument over who's creating the computer system with its ones and zeros, or the word with its DNA, which origins of life people can never do, that they can't replicate that in the lab. They've never been able to. And you've had um, basically incentives like, I'll give you $10 million if you can make life in a lab, so just interesting. But back to the book.
I love it. Oh, that is so awesome. Yeah, that is that irreducible complexity of you're not going to get a cell without DNA. You're
Yeah.
just not. You can't. And it is, DNA is you know, in some regards, you could think of it as a book of life. It's codes.
Hmm.
It's just codes, and it says everything. I mean, not everything, but it says a whole lot. But the way you read it is like a Rubik's cube, and it
Hmm.
can change based on epigenetics of what's going on outside of you.
Which is
And
fascinating. It's just
it's
amazing.
it's a miracle.
Yeah, it's
It's a
amazing.
real miracle.
Yeah.
And and that gives me so much hope. The more that I've learned about how much we don't know about DNA, it really is, it's great. It's, because the more we learn, the more we know that we don't know. Because it is, for example, so CRISPR technology, what are we really talking about? We're talking about editing genes, reorganizing the amino acids from one pattern to a different pattern.
Hmm.
And those things code out and they have an impact on the organism as a whole. So, um, we human beings have been able to be edited by our environment, or by things going on around us from time immemorial. And so one instance is that when you have a partner that you're intimate with, then the male sperm will actually edit some genes inside of the woman, even without conception of a new human. So inside of the female reproductive tract, they find um, that there are cells that are different, that have taken on qualities from sperm, which is just an amazing phenomenon. What I was first taught in biology class was that, well, your DNA, this is how it's for forensics. If you murdered somebody and then they found your DNA, then they knew it was you. But the thing is that the DNA from, the top of your head is different from the DNA to the bottom of your feet. There are some small alterations that can happen. So your body can literally take in genetic information from people around you. And whether or not that is something that you're aware of, it still has potentially a tremendous impact on your health. And so, I mean, just think about, like, spiritually, you're carrying around literally the two different people became one with that act. You have now taken on parts of their life code. Their DNA is in you now. And
This
so,
is
yeah,
Well, I wanted to say that the last time that Sierra and I spoke, we had an off recording conversation about some of these ideas. And we had said, I don't even know if you remember this, but we said then that it would be a fun conversation to talk about the scientific basis for chastity. I had told you something that Alan had said to me, and at the time, I was trying to back it up with the scientific study that he was quoting me on it. And I couldn't find it, and I found all kinds of studies, and it took me down all kinds of pathways of thinking about it. And I'm going to interrupt before we segue further into this and just show when I said to Sierra, come back and talk with me and what would you like to talk about? She sent me a list, the book, the blood banking, so forth. And then, do you mind if I read the
sure.
email she's, or we can talk quantum midwifery. God showed me something today about med beds and skin to skin between mother and baby, oxytocin and imprinting, the light at conception and birth, biophotonics, spooky particle and lovemaking, genetic modification of humans by humans, sperm alter vaginal mucosal genetics, maternal fetal chimerism, and quantum connections between heaven and earth and children who have passed away. And, it's great. I was like, ooh, I've got to look this up. And we had talked a bit about spooky particle and lovemaking and the conversation that we had earlier, and also how sperm alter vaginal mucosal genetics. Now, if you look this one up online, because I did, what you will find is that that is a fact. The sperm, not just of someone that you conceive with, but the sperm that any sperm that enters the vaginal mucosal lining will alter that. And the studies that they're doing have to do with HIV, a hospitable environment for HIV. But all you have to do is remove that And then you're into really a philosophical idea about what happens inside a woman with any encounter that she has. And so the conversation that I was sharing with Sierra was some of my own ideas about the pillars that hold up society, the pillars that support society that Ellen was always saying, well, we're so well studied, they know the pillars that hold us up, and then they just set about knocking those pillars down. And you can often look at what is being promoted in the wider culture and almost look at it as a, well, let's, opposite land. If good is evil and dark, black is white and so forth. Just look at that as why are they promoting a concepts called sexual freedom, what let's call it promiscuity, but why is this being promoted? And it's a woman's choice, and men can have as many partners as they want. Now, there's an interesting thing about all of this is that the male biology is not impacted in the same way by multiple partners that the female is. But nonetheless, philosophically, because we're only talking nature here at the moment. I'm not talking morals, but there's still going to be blowback for the male nonetheless. So as I got into this after receiving this email from Sierra, I was looking at all kinds of things. Essentially, what Ellen was explaining to me is that a woman biologically retains an imprint, genetic material from every male that she has sex with. The body remembers that. And there are psychological ramifications because it's not just an act that is separated. And we're not talking about emotions or psychology. We're talking about the way that genes, DNA, actually edits other aspects of your physiology. It's fascinating and amazing. And as I was talking to my friend, the biochemist, yesterday, I mentioned some of these ideas with him, and he was talking to me about a concept that they study in other species that are, you'll know this, but it's mating plugs or sperm plugs. Now, they say that this is not a thing in humans, but competition and cooperation of sperm is a thing in humans. So
Definitely.
the mating plug that you observe in other animals is literally when sperm just get together and they make they make almost a wall or a block. So it's blocking competition or it's creating a housing for an egg. That's the plug. But in humans, you have observable cooperation. This has something to do, it's beyond my understanding at the moment, but it has to do with viscosity. So low viscosity is higher cooperation, I think, and higher viscosity is lower. It's a need that the body is signaling for sperm cooperation. And what what you have is the body is saying this is hospitable for you, but not for you. And so you can, just extrapolate out from there. Why is the body doing that? And so anyway, I've opened the door. Alan called this nature. He said you can discuss all you want about morals and what you should and shouldn't do and what your religion does or doesn't prescribe, but I am talking to you about nature. And I he went on and on about that, and I won't, but nature is absolutely amazing. And what we also talked about briefly that day was I said, I was trying to explain to a friend of mine who had grown daughters that are one of them is married and one is not. And, she's had this kind of an attitude that so many people, well, whatever they want to do, whatever, they've got to experiment. And I said, sex magic has been studied and practiced and promoted in a variety of ways in the culture for a reason. And that's because the act is incredibly powerful. It's the only way in which humans can actually contribute to creation. And that's powerful. So anything that you look at that is being promoted as the inverse or the mirror side of that, that is telling you that there's no ramifications, there's no consequences, do as thou wilt, you just have to ask why. Why is this incredibly powerful creative act turned into sport?
Excellent, excellent questions people need
So,
to ask.
let's let you talk about spooky particle and lovemaking.
So, um, like you said, this is nature. These are observable phenomenon, for the most part, depending on how good your instruments are. Um, um, so spooky particle is just a nickname, really, for I believe that Einstein gave this concept in quantum physics. But it's that when we put two atoms together in the same molecule, they are really around each other a whole lot. They've become one in a unit in a molecule.
It's quantum entanglement.
Entanglement, right? The real title. um, but then when they split and have been separated by, I think that the research was on like 6 miles. They moved them 6 miles away from each other. It's like a huge amount for two tiny little atoms to be. And yet, when they would apply stimulus to one, the other one would react as though it was still connected directly to the other. And so, everything is interconnected. These are like really deep spiritual teachings, but we can observe them in nature. And so just think, the your DNA is a substance. It's proteins put together in certain orders. It's made out of, you know, molecules and atoms at the basic level, and then we could take it even further and say, well, what's really in an atom? There's actually, it's just electrical charges, light and sound. But at the end of the day, we can see physically a substance there. Um, and if you have inherited the genes from another person into your body through lovemaking, now you literally carry them around with you, their essence, despite, I mean, golly, even without that fact of genetic altering of humans by humans,
Mhm.
even just um, uh, proximity and then being separated, that entanglement exists. It's just on a different level. So, and this is the same not just for intimate partners, but for our children, our family members, our grandparents, our parents, and people who are around us. So it is it's a powerful reason to be aware of the potential future effects, because what's happening to them is happening to you. And, there's a lot there's a lot of stuff out there right now as far as using the power of intention and words to alter those entanglements. And that would be called prayer, you know, to end entanglements where you're trying to change or alter the past that has happened, calling all of the pieces back to you that belonged to you, um, giving back everything that you can give it back. But at the end of the day, when your genes have literally been altered to be like somebody else, to have part of their name written in you, it's just really powerful. Very, very powerful. There's something that you hit on that I wanted to talk about too, with the sperm helping each other out. The egg decides who she wants to come in. It's not just a race to the finish line. The egg chooses who she wants to be the one to fertilize her. And so, it's a choice. And this is it's been observed. It is just a totally different way of looking at it. And of course, when we're doing this stuff in a petri dish, it's going to it's when we're observing it in a petri dish, but
Well,
cells
this
act.
light reaction that you're talking about, this is
Mhm.
zinc.
Mhm.
My biochemist friend was telling me that this zinc reaction that is observable is something that happens even if there is not conception there. It's the and it can be lighter, like a brighter light, or again, it's about an egg becoming receptive to the sperm. And I don't know. I just found it really pretty cool. But it's,
It is. And
yeah.
that, yeah, so the light that's emitted, um, you just think about all. He said zinc. I thought it was magnesium. And maybe there's two different lights. Maybe zinc is without conception and just getting, ready to receive. And maybe magnesium is that, or maybe it's both, or maybe
Yeah.
I'm just totally wrong. But I think about when, Christ said salt and light need to be salt and light. And, magnesium is a form of salt. Zinc, I don't know, maybe zinc is considered a form of salt. Um, Zinc oxide or something like that. Anyway, I know it's a metal, but um, the light literally is inside of us. And that is something we're just starting to really learn more about, is biophotonics. And I started getting interested in this hilariously because I love to hike. And when I go hiking, there's all these different styles of hikers, right? You have people who kind of run through the forest. They're like on a mission to get to where they're going. And then you have other people who are kind of like Little Red Riding Hood, skipping along and don't seem to have, a care about themselves. And then there's people like me who are walking, and all of a sudden I'll start like petting the moss, or, rubbing a lichen on a tree, because I'm attracted by their color. And I've always said they glow. They glow. And of course I was corrected as a child, say, Speedy, that's not glowing. It's just a really bright green. No, it's glowing. And when I just last year started looking into that, it's a process called biophotonics, and it's literally emitting light. All creatures emit light. Things emit light. We're just starting to really understand it. We're not just reflecting beams from other things. We are giving out light. And, in one regard, this is not earth-shattering news, right? With like infrared cameras, we can see light being put off in heat energy. But the biophotonics. There's some really neat gadgets coming out that mimic this light wave that's not necessarily perceptible to you as a light wave, but that's trying to sort of mimic what the forest and living things does in order to help your body overcome EMF, like from Wi-Fi and
Mm-hmm.
5G and all of the stuff that we can't see, but that's light and is
Mm-hmm.
definitely around us and having an impact on human health. Um, One of the things that happens when a mom and baby first connect right after birth, the baby so I'll kind of back up. Physiologic birth. What I mean by that is birth that was totally undisturbed. The mom births the way her DNA is programmed to birth. She is not being, for the most part, told what to do. No one's
Mm-hmm.
messing with her. She's in her primal place, which is not a place that's connected to this realm. You know, mom's kind of, hi, kitty. Um, Mom's kind of mentally during the birthing, especially toward the end of birth, they kind of go someplace else. They enter into different brainwave state and much slower brainwave state because she's not needing her frontal cortex, which is your beta brain. Blah 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 blah. I'm making a plan. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. She's operating in her way primitive brain. She doesn't need this. In fact, this part gets in the way of the primal brain that's just operating the DNA. And, you know, I do this. It's like I'm operating an excavator. Like, this is very simple stuff. um, um, and so what you'll see is that the mom uh, uh, gets into a squat, usually a semi squat, an asymmetrical squat, births the baby. Maybe she can catch the baby, but oftentimes she'll just birth the baby on whatever surface. And I mean, it's a part of the process. Maybe someone will catch the baby, but she generally is stunned. The baby is a little stunned. And we call it out of body experience. And we're having to call them back into, or they're calling themselves back into, oh, this new existence, this new reality. You know, the baby is like, is there life outside of womb? I don't know. I've never been there. You know, they say there is, but I'm not so sure. And then they come out and then they're like, whoa, you know, and they're looking around. Hopefully, you know, generally speaking, they are. They're looking around. The mom is like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And it takes her a second, a few seconds, a good solid few seconds. That's okay. And then she picks up her baby and she brings her baby to her chest. And that is generally when the baby cries, makes its first exhale, inhale. You know, the first breath is actually an exhale. And I'll go into that. I won't go into that, but um, when she's got the baby up close, now the baby's crying, and then what she'll do, look at the baby and look at the baby in the eyes. And there is that boom imprinting that starts to happen. And it's like this like huge firework explosion of oxytocin, which is the love hormone, the bonding hormone. It is totally bathing all of the neurocircuitry of the mommy and the baby, both. They're both just, you know, really, really high on oxytocin. This is the opposite, the total inverse of what happens to someone in PTSD. In PTSD, the brain is being bathed in adrenaline. Everything, just adrenaline, adrenaline, adrenaline is just soaked everything to the point where it's going to rewire neural pathways according to that reality that happened. But this, with the birth, with oxytocin, the pathways are being rewired to this beautiful new human being that she's just given birth to. And she made all that oxytocin inside of her brain herself. She didn't need it from an IV bag. And the babies also got the oxytocin. And that is what, there's something so incredible, light emission inside that I'm not exactly sure how they were able to quantify or measure it, but that there is a light expression that happens when the mom's retina and the baby's retina connect. That is a part of what sets off this huge imprinting.
Wow.
And so during COVID, when moms were told that they had to wear a mask, I was like, oh my gosh, no, no, no. Yeah, at least they still got the eyes, but the whole face needs to be involved in this process. We have no idea what else is going on. We haven't studied it yet. But reasonably, the baby needs to see the mommy's face as soon as they're born. And if it as in any way possible, size, shape, or form, be able to do that, unless they're maybe blind at birth, which is so rare. So anyway, it's just this really incredible process that happens in normal, undisturbed birth. And if you compare that with what goes on at the hospital, total opposite. It's more of the PTSD situation where you have all this adrenaline going. You may not even have the huge oxytocin boom. You may not even get to hold your baby. You may not get to look at your baby before they've injected it with hepatitis B vaccine. You literally, which is for an STD, you literally may or may not get that imprinting with you and your baby.
Mm.
So all of this is going on, hopefully, right? I mean, we're talking like 1 minute after birth. And she has, you know, she has instigated all of this on her own. Nobody is telling her, okay, pick up your baby. All right, look at your baby. Nobody's saying that. It's just, this is just over and over and over, over culture over culture over culture. This is what women do. And she's got the baby on her chest, still connected to umbilical cord, still connected to the blood supply from the placenta for, maybe 5 more minutes, maybe an hour or more, but still connected because that thing, that cord is so brilliant. The placenta is so smart. It doesn't, it's looked at from the medical establishment as a waste product of birth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they literally, the medical textbooks literally define birth as the expulsion of the contents of the uterus. My God, that is not what birth is. Birth is the creation of a new life. It is as close to God's as we will ever be. We literally get to participate in creation to that extent. And so mom's got baby on her chest. They're falling in love. They've looked at each other. They've had the light. They've experienced the bloom or the blossom of oxytocin. And now you might hear one of my little blooms. Give me just 1 second to address him for a moment. Okay, I think he's going to be okay.
Okay.
He's well attended. Just a little bit more on, and there's more of them than there are of their grandparents. So, what we were talking about, she's holding her baby, they're connecting, they're imprinting on each other. There's this massive wave of oxytocin. The point that I was trying to get at was, I was talking about the genius of the placenta. It's not just a discard item of birth. It is in some cultures they regard it so highly they have a ceremony and they bury it. In other cultures they eat it. They honor it very much. In ours, if we honor it, then that means we've obtained stem cells from it that we can then turn around and sell and inject into people. Then it has value. right? If we can make money on it, then it has value. Um, but the inverse of what, this is in the hospital setting is just, she may never have really had any of these things go down because she didn't get a physiological birth. Um, you know, and then they say, well, we have to keep the baby in the warmer because the baby's gotten too cold, or the baby is breathing too fast. And so we're going to have to keep the baby for monitoring, or we're going to put some air onto the baby's nose, or give them straight up oxygen or whatever it is. When, we may very well have actually iatrogenically caused that from the interventions by the hospital because the mom is the original med bed. Med beds are this thing that people are like, maybe they exist. A lot of people were like, if once we get RFK Jr. in there, we're going to get med beds. And Trump's going to let us have beds and get the technology out there. And med beds, so they're like part sci-fi, part, I think they're probably real. I think that they exist. There's one thing called the immortal chamber, and it's we used to go to this doctor. Like, he's just a fabulous, brilliant, caring human being who helped create this immortal chamber. And it's using frequencies, and it's like combining lots and lots and lots and lots of therapies into one big push to help the body kind of reboot itself and get its own healing going. So with this idea of a med bed is like you could go get hit by a car or have cancer or whatever it is, and your body be placed inside of this bed, kind of like, imagine like a tanning booth or something like that, similar. You get put in there, and then somebody pushes some buttons on an iPad, and then it analyzes and restores your body. And the only way it can do that really is to take advantage of your body's natural ability to heal itself and just allow it to heal itself. Tell it, okay, it's like communicating with the DNA. Okay, do that program that you know how to do to heal this problem. So the mom's body is the original med bed. And what I mean by that is that the mom instinctually puts baby on her chest and does not move the baby. She doesn't let the baby go until the baby is really well adapted. And then after birth, that could be hours. She's not going to let the baby go. Maybe somebody will hold the baby for a little bit so she can do some personal care, but then she goes back to skin time with baby. And really, that's the way it is for most women who are who are doing the undisturbed physiologic. They just listen to their body. They're going to be spending lots and lots and lots, almost all time, skin to skin with baby, because when they do that, the bodies of the mom and baby communicate to where the baby's heart rate is regulated by the mother's body. The baby's respirations, or how many times per minute that the baby breathes, is regulated by the mother's body. The glucose of the baby, the blood glucose of the baby, is regulated by the mother's body. Their overall, their temperature is regulated by the mother's body. Their overall temperament and how they just are at peace from the mother's body. And that is going on not because of proximity, not because of the mom's heat or, energy output. That is literally from this like close to heart electrical transfer. It is something that we don't have a way to quantify because it is not going on in a quantifiable realm. It's going on in the quantum realm. So we can observe naturally what's going on, but that is not from, because the mom's heart rate, the baby's just matching the mom's heart rate. No, baby's heart rate's way faster than a mom's heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Mom's temperature, okay, maybe. Okay, I'll give them that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all of the things. And so that's why I say, the mom's body is literally like the med bed. Anything going on with that baby, if you put them skin to skin, it it helps tremendously. So, there's midwives who do resuscitation on the mom's body and take advantage of this in the rare event during a physiological birth that a baby needs help breathing. It's done with the aid of nature. And other things that go on the same list would include, of course, they're going to escape me in the moment, but there's something else really big with that. On the body, skin to skin, getting the resuscitation. There's the obvious, which is lactation or producing enough breast milk. That happens um, when you're doing skin to skin, you get way better output of breast milk. The baby eats more of what it's supposed to eat instead of, having these big problems of not getting enough and having weight loss. But there's a hospital in Canada that has women self-refer to this program, and what they have a history of in common is that they use heroin or Suboxone or methadone, which are all kind of the same basket, right? So moms, the thing is that a woman who's an addict who gets pregnant is, in a really, really, really tight situation. Because if she is honest about what's going on with her, she gets treated more and more like a criminal and is threatened more and more by the system. When really what she needs is like something way more integrative than punitive, and so in the United States, it's very seemingly punitive with moms. But in Canada, there's one program in the hospital where the moms, all they have to do is say, I want to be in this program. And after they give birth, they are given their baby and they are told they cannot stop holding the baby. They have to wear the baby skin to skin or someone else with them, like a companion that they have chosen as a designated person will wear the baby when the mom has to take a shower or go to the restroom. And then baby goes right back onto the mom. And the babies don't go through withdrawal.
Wow. Wow.
The moms like get off and stay off of drugs. It is phenomenal.
Mm.
And um we really think that's from the massive dose of oxytocin
Mm-hmm.
that is rewiring the mom's brain to heal it, to really love this baby. She's being healed by love. And then the baby is also receiving that healing love because, otherwise, babies who are born addicted, they have problems. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
boy, do they have problems. And as a labor and delivery nurse and a postpartum mother baby nurse, I had to take care of those sweet babies who were born addicted. And the moms are separated from the babies. And the babies just want to be held nonstop
Mm.
because they are hurting and they're going through withdrawal.
Mm.
So, anyway, that is just another one of those things of like the mom's body is such a powerful med bed. It heals the babies of addiction.
That is incredible. That's just it's beautiful and incredible. I had a conversation with a couple in England about a month ago on Real History, Andrew and Elizabeth, and she's a midwife, and I'm not sure if she's actively doing that now. I know she's actively studying herbs and herbology, but her studies into midwifery showed she also got into reading the bad guys like Bertrand Russell. And her studies showed her that they've known for so long what would make a successful birth, how the mother and the child, the baby, will most benefit. And then the protocols are the opposite of that. And I had another unrecorded conversation with a listener, Prince, and he was mentioning a book. The title escapes me. It was written by a German man some years ago. But he was talking about how the worst thing that you can do is to cut the umbilical cord. The oxygen that goes through there is a little talked about, but is desperately needed. You think about all of the problems because when you talk about the mother being the ultimate medbed and healing herself and the baby from the withdrawals of heroin, I mean, that is amazing. But I have known, I've had a friend of mine who had a baby, and she said she did not bond to that baby at all. And ultimately, and I don't know, I didn't know enough at the time to ask her, but the second baby, she felt that she'd had bonding, the appropriate bonding with. But both of her deliveries were in a normal hospital setting and where they take the baby away from you immediately and someone else holds it, someone else bathes it. It's all of those things that a mother is supposed to do naturally and knows to do without being told. It's out of her hands. And I think that postpartum depression is just a huge, huge problem in the States. I don't know how it is in other countries, but postpartum depression is very, very big. And I wonder if that oxytocin release has been blocked by a normal hospital birth.
Yeah, it literally is. You're spot on. So oxytocin, the antagonist or the thing that blocks oxytocin is adrenaline, norepinephrine, epinephrine, um, cortisol, stress hormones.
Mhm.
They're going to compete for places. And you have to think, okay, a bear is coming. Are we going to want to hug? Well, probably. I mean, ultimately, yeah, I'd probably like some comfort if a bear is coming after me. But before I get that hug, I'm going to run first. And so adrenaline's going to win.
Right.
Adrenaline's going to win that fight. And it could be something as simple as like flipping the lights on in the hospital and say, "Oh, hi, my name is Sierra. I'm going to be your nurse today." Um, you know, and you're like, wow, I just gave birth and I'm still kind of not in my body yet. You just, we
Mhm.
do absolutely. And then the epidural alters the oxytocin release of the mom, all of it pretty much. I love what you said about her reading the bad guys and and understanding. We do know, we have known that
Mhm.
was a part of the heartbreaking thing going on during COVID where they were in New York separating moms and babies like
Mhm.
for weeks and weeks and weeks at a
Mhm.
time. And in Soviet Russia, they didn't, communists never really have as big of a problem doing really unethical research on human beings. Um, and so some of the research that I've read was on taking the baby after birth, swaddling it, and doing what we would call normal treatment
Mhm.
in the United States. Okay. And then giving it back to the mom versus directly putting the baby on the mom skin to skin and keeping the mom wrapped with the baby, which was um, compared Years later, okay, they took these same people from these groups and put behavioral psychologists out to observe the mother-child dyads. They only knew who went to who, which mom and which child. And they could pick out which ones were put skin to skin with their babies and which ones were swaddled, almost without exception.
Wow.
It was so severe of a difference because the bonding was so impaired that the moms who were not properly bonded to the children operated as such. And so we're doing that on a massive scale. And I know hospitals right now, they say, oh, we do kangaroo care. But yet they still put stuff in between the mom and the baby.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, well, it's just really gross and dirty. It's like, no, it's not gross and
It's
dirty.
skin.
It's skin, that woman's body, that's her own body stuff. And when she smells that baby, it releases all kinds of other hormones in cascades, including oxytocin. When she smells what do they do? Put a hat on it because otherwise it will get too cold. It's like, no, the mom can keep the baby completely the right temperature without a hat on, skin to skin. So, yeah, the mom's body is the ultimate med bed.
Neat. Well, before we wrap up this conversation, which I have totally enjoyed, I want to finish the list. We didn't, there were lots of things I think we could have talked about in more detail, but quantum connections between heaven and earth and children who have passed away.
Thank you. So, my story with this, this is really I've come to a place where I am so thankful for, I know it sounds so crazy. I'm thankful for the miscarriage that I had. I had a miscarriage in 2020, February, and I was pregnant with twins.
Mm.
And the reason why I'm thankful is because I get those twins. I have them. They're real. They're alive. They're in me. They're also alive in heaven. And I also got my rainbow baby who was conceived 3 months after their passing, who I couldn't have if they hadn't. And so I get all of them. I don't get just one or the other. So that's part of my gratefulness. But it's also just their lives were so impactful that they changed the trajectory of my entire life into what I'm doing today at Impact Reconciliation and beyond. So I found out I was pregnant on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, which is December 8th. And I gave birth to what I thought was going to be a baby and was two on February 6th of 2020. And I ended up hemorrhaging twice. And that's a part of the fact they were twins. And a long story short about, ultimately I hemorrhaged twice. I needed a blood transfusion. That's a part of why with this most recent pregnancy, I said, I am not doing a blood transfusion from the public, right? Because this is right before we had the COVID vaccine get introduced in February of 2020. And what we have found through scientific investigation is that there are literally cells from the mom's child, from the fetus embryo, that transverse and go into the mom's blood circulation and find places that are in need of healing or they have been damaged. And the baby's cells will go and heal those cells in the mom's body. And so they can find cells in the mom the rest of her life from her babies. Especially the longer living cells like the central nervous system cells. And so you're literally, this person's physical body is still alive inside of the mother's physical body. Nature. This is nature. And
Mm-hmm.
we've all heard, well, they'll always be alive inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally, yeah, they are alive inside of you. And yet their spirit has gone on to the next side. And that connection is so powerful. It takes a really big leap. It takes so much sorrow to get to this point. But if you ride that wave of sorrow, you ride into pure joy because what you find is that your baby, what I find, my babies are with God. They are in heaven, very much alive, and yet their body is alive inside of me. And I've just had this incredible um, peace and closeness and watching that play out, that their energy has gone on to the next dimension and yet is right here as well. And so I am so close. Whatever part of me was in them is also there in heaven right now. And so I think it honest speaking very plainly, I think it potentizes anything I ask for from God and from heaven because of just, I don't know, the connection so much stronger um, through the veil where I'll ask and pray for things and see them happen, or pray for people to be healed, and see all of the things play out that I've seen with Impact Reconciliation, which is all inspired by their lives and the impact that they had in the world in just a few months of living. Um, so I'm not sure how well I did at explaining that, but that's something that's not just for me, that's for everybody. Any person who has carried a baby, whether that baby was birthed at full term, or birthed at just a few weeks gestation, those that baby cells are still alive inside of you, very much so still alive and still very real, um, giving you life and perpetuating you while you're still here. So um, it's really beautiful. It's called maternal fetal chimerism. And it's another hope that we have against this horrible mRNA technology and the experimental gene therapies disguised as vaccines, because they really think that they've figured out how to kind of silently kill us all off. And if you really look at it, there's very few people who are talking about, well, how can we possibly solve this other than we're just all going to have to go to the gene editor, go
Mm-hmm.
get the next update, just like
Mm-hmm.
our iPhone, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the minds that started this problem won't fix it. But your body, your genes, your programming is so much more powerful than you can possibly imagine. We program we are reprogrammed by other humans. Those babies reprogrammed parts of me. My husband reprogrammed parts of me in my genes. And so we can most certainly overcome somehow. There's hope for even getting over this mRNA debacle.
Well, that's very beautiful. It really is, and I understand it. I hadn't, I can't think of it in those terms because that's not my experience, but I do, the whole quantum entanglement that is love is very powerful. It's very real, and I've experienced that. And some of the most profound experiences that I've ever had happened after Alan passed out of this realm, because it brought the whole space-time continuum into a completely different perspective for me. And I understood that this kind of linear materialist view of the world was a fiction. It was not real. And love is amazing. It's amazing.
It transcends all the realms.
Well, I have just enjoyed this so much. I really have, and I know that other people will too. And I thank you for sharing so honestly. And we've gone out there into the woo, and I love it out there. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
All right. Well, next week I will be talking with Nick Hayes about snow crash. It'll be a very different conversation, but I'm looking forward to that. And I've given you a few little hints as to what that's all about. And I'm really looking forward, Sierra, to talking with you when the book comes out, and it's very inspiring what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Likewise.
I've got something that the world didn't give me, and the world cannot take it.